Hey everyone, it's LG, and today I'll be speaking with my good friend since high school, Brenon Kalu. And
Hey,
he's my counterpart in the UX design world and the host of the Creative Come Up. So welcome, Brennan.
thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual. Before we jump into anything, I definitely want to let you introduce yourself to the internet world here. So go ahead and share.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Brennan. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a Filipino American. I'm a product designer currently at Etsy. I'm originally born and raised in the Bay Area, grew up in Vallejo, California. It's been a lot of fun, like being on this journey with you, Lauren, since what, 2005, really? um, I guess I can talk a little bit about what I do at Etsy. So I'm a product designer and I primarily work on the trust and safety team. I build and design some internal tools. I also build some third party B2B tools, as well as like some consumer facing stuff all around the realm of helping keep the Etsy marketplace safe from fraudulent or nefarious parties, as well as encouraging users to beef up their security. So, making sure they create safer passwords, nudge users to practice a better internet hygiene. I really love the space that I operate in, given the fact that a lot of what we focus on is keeping merchandise and information off of our platform that could be used in very negative ways. So, one of the biggest examples of that is keeping like QAnon merchandise off our platform. And I help internal agents kind of build the tools to flag those things and take them down immediately. So, very relevant stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. You recently just started working at Etsy, and congratulations on that. I know that that has been a journey, and I know that you mentioned we've been doing this since 2005. I think what's interesting is that we've known each other since the beginning of high school, but our relationship has kind of been touch and go. When you were pivoting, you let me know that you got laid off from one of your jobs. And
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about what your next steps were. I want you to talk me through that boot camp experience because I know that you did that and then you also went to school. What was that learning experience like when you were just trying to enter this world of UX and trying to be a designer?
Yeah. I guess I can jump back all the way to the beginning. So, I did my undergrad at San Diego State and I studied management information systems. And the way that I kind of describe that is the intersection of business and technology. A lot of people come out of that program becoming a business analyst or a data analyst. I kind of followed that path. And right when I graduated, I became a data analyst at a healthcare revenue management company. And I was like solely underqualified to be in that role. I literally did not know what I was doing every single day, and I was a horrible employee. I'll leave it at that. But around that time was when my interest in design, as well as like data visualization and front end, was kind of peaked. And I came across this web experience that still currently exists, and it was called Behind the Bloodshed. And basically, it was this web experience that visualized all of the mass murders in the United States. And it literally blew my mind. I was like, who is building this? How did they get this data? Why did they choose to make things in this way? And that really encouraged me to start learning about design on my own. So I enrolled at a local community college and I was taking some design classes, as well as teaching myself front end development through Code Academy and things like that. And so this kind of jumps to the part where I got laid off. And so I was actually laid off from that job, not performance related. The company just wasn't doing that well. And that kind of spurred me to move back to the Bay Area. I think at that time, startups were like super hot. It was like the time to be back in the Bay. And I did want to be closer to my family. So I moved back. I had a job at the time as well at a startup working in marketing operations. And I actually got laid off from that job as well.
Oh, I didn't
Again,
know that.
yeah, not my fault. I
Yeah,
swear, I'm a great employee.
yeah.
Um, but that was kind of the second sign to me where it was like, look, you're doing these jobs that you're getting laid off from. You have this other passion, and I think you should really like pursue it. And it was like a really low time for me.
Mhm.
I called my eldest sister and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I found this program that my friend did. he just finished it. He got a job at Amazon. Like, woo, Amazon. Like, I think I could do this. I have a strong interest in it. Like, what do you think? And she was like, dude, go for it. And the hardest part for me, and this kind of ties into what you and I talk about a lot, is that the family oriented thing. Growing up Filipino, Filipino American, and I was just so prideful about asking my parents for help.
Yeah.
This program was $13,000, I think, at the time. And I came to my parents and I was like crying, really. And I was like, you guys do so much for me. And I want to do this and I'm passionate about it. And I think this is really where I want to take my career. And they were very supportive and they were like, look, you're going to pay this money back, but we'll kind of help you along. We'll give you a little bit of money to help you figure it out. And I was so grateful for that because basically I joined that boot camp, which was called Tradecraft. I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but it was a small boot camp in SF in the city. While I was there, I actually applied as a product designer. And at that time, like product design wasn't really a thing. But the way that they framed it was a program for you to build mobile apps and try to like monetize them and try to like sell them, as opposed to being like very UX focused, which
Yeah.
I mean they're the same at the end of the day now, but yeah, that boot camp was like really intense. We would do lessons or studying in the beginning of the day, and the rest of the days we would have like self-directed work as well as working with startups and doing sort of consulting for them.
Mm.
So I did that for 3 months. And once that program wrapped up, I literally was just applying anywhere and everywhere. I got my first job in UX basically by cold emailing an agency in Oakland called Comrade. Now they're called CINT. And just like, hey, I have these design skills. There's not even an opening on your website, but I think I'd be a great fit. And they were like, hey, we might have something coming in the pipeline. Let's bring you in and let's have a conversation. It ended up working out really well. And that was how I got my first UX gig, was literally off of a cold email and kind of just showing my personality because I didn't really have like real world work in my portfolio at the time. So all of it kind of just lined up and worked out in that way.
That's
Um,
amazing, Brennan. To me, you have quite the personality. Obviously, closed mouths don't get fed, but I think it's amazing to see that was the progression, or that once you're faced with something very difficult, you're like, all right, like I'm not going to let my ego or my pride get in the way of that. I'm going to try and like figure out who can help me, who can support me. Like I have the support system, and when you're able to lean on them, that they're able to help you get back on your feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's a huge privilege. And I realized that I was able to have that support from my parents. And I mean, you also mentioned going back to school because that's like the second part of the progress in my career. But like, that was like a whole nother thing, right? Was like, I've already invested so much money in this boot camp. Am I really going to invest another 60K plus
Yeah.
interest in going back to school? And I basically just decided to go back because I still felt imposter syndrome. I
Okay.
felt like I kind of cheated my way in. I mean, like, yes and no. Part of it was like, I wanted to get the validation that I needed to be like, I'm a designer. I didn't go to art school, but like, I could still compete with y'all.
Yeah.
And a part of it was that. And then a part of it was like, I still had gaps in my skill set that I didn't feel totally comfortable like selling. And part of that was research. Part of that was just carving out time to like really go heads down on my visual design skills. So that was partially why I ended up going back to doing a master's in human computer interaction and design at UC Irvine and the inaugural class, just like you, at USC. So
That's awesome. In terms of where you are now as a designer, like how would you describe what you anticipate, moving forward?
yeah. So in my new role, I had a lot of conversations with my manager about like what the next step in my career is. And I'm really exploring what design management looks like. Etsy is the largest design organization that I've been a part of. We're pushing 60 plus people at this point, which is literally so wild to me when I had just joined from a team that was about 10 to 15 people. And I thought that was a lot. And so I'm really grateful that I'm joining a team where we have the opportunity to explore what design management looks like. And they're giving us those opportunities to kind of fail and make mistakes. And so that's kind of where I see the trajectory of my career going. I love building teams. I love helping people accomplish their goals. Like, as a part of all of the team sports in high school. So I
Yeah.
still feel like that's a core piece of my personality. And I would love to do that. But I can also see myself just like going down the individual contributor route and just having the largest effect by actually building the things. So I think I'm still kind of at that fork in the road, but I definitely see design management as a real opportunity for the next step in my career.
That's great. When we talk about these progressions through our UX careers, what always came up was healthy competition. Or like every time like you would go to school, I would be like, okay, I need to do something different. Or like when I got a new job, you'd be like, okay, I need to do something new. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'll caveat by saying this. I think there should be a healthy balance between carving your own route and doing things exactly for you, but also like having a healthy understanding of comparison and like seeing where you are, matching yourself up to other people. It helps you kind of take a look at yourself and see what your strengths and weaknesses are. But with that said, like healthy competition with you, it's really only with you or it's with other
Oh
people.
my God. Okay. That's the first time I heard that. But
It's either with you or with people that have very similar progressions
sure.
as me or experiences as me.
Yeah,
And so with you, it's great because we come from the same place. We're
exactly.
cut from the same cloth. We have very similar experiences. When we have conversations, outside of moments like this, we laugh the entire time and we can get deep. And then, we can go straight back to laughing and talk about career and jump around because we just have such a good understanding of each other. And so I like the idea that, we could kind of look at ourselves starting from similar places and see where our paths go. And you might jump ahead a little bit. And I'm like, okay, Lauren is really on her shit. And so maybe I need to be more on my shit, or maybe that's not where I'm at
Yeah,
currently. And maybe my focus is somewhere else. And that's okay. But I
exactly.
think having that healthy competition allows me to kind of look internally and say, I can push myself in the same way that Lauren is pushing herself. Or that's not for me at this moment in my life or in my career. And that's okay. And I can focus on other things like picking up a side project or focusing more energy on mentorship or something like that. And the thing about it is it's all love,
It
at the end
is.
of the day. And you and I talk about it, but knowing that I can fall back on that, it just gives me an added sense of comfort that I can have this healthy competition, but not feel like we're going to fight each other someday or we're going to.
Exactly. No, I think what's beautiful about that is it comes with the friendship, and I don't
Yeah.
think we understood that very early on. What's been really helpful is that we have someone to kind of like check us or look at because we don't know what that trajectory is. Like, I think I've
Right.
always been so uncertain about, am I doing this right? Or like, am I not doing this enough? And like you mentioned, even if Brennan is doing this, is that for me? Or is that the way
Right.
that I want to stretch myself? It might manifest in different ways. So, for example, me trying to start doing YouTube, like that was completely different for me. But I was like, I've never done something that I felt super passionate about. And I've always saw your passion to like just dabble and just try something out. And I was like, I need to let this happen somehow. It may not be at the same time Brennan's doing it, but
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. That is a really great kind of relationship to have. And I'm very fortunate to do that with you.
Yeah, no, and I feel the same exact way. Even when we were in high school, we tried to collaborate on projects. I feel like we have the same sort of mindset of like how we want to have our impact on the world.
Yes.
So like I'm very happy that you went the YouTube route and also asked me because obviously I'd love to help you in any way, but like telling your story in general is like so important to me because yes, you might be in like a crowded space with other people, but like somebody out there is going to relate to your story and
Yeah.
somebody out there is going to, especially with you being very vulnerable about sharing your anxiety and things like that, you won't realize it, but that's just going to have a multiplier effect. It's your corner of the universe or it's your
Yeah.
corner of the internet that somebody can always go back to and say like, I relate to that and that had an impact on me. So keep creating. Like one of my mantras that I'm really trying to embody for this year and even last year was create more than you consume.
Yeah.
And create can come in multiple different ways. And like physical manifestation, that could be nurturing a relationship. It could be reaching out to a friend, establishing a new process, changing up your routine. So I really want to champion that and also like share that with you because I think we kind of have similar mindsets when it comes to living life and our careers and things like that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think one of the things around like the healthy competition was involving you moving to New York. And we both made it. But what was your thought process in terms of like wanting to be in New York? What was the itch that you wanted to scratch?
Yeah, totally. I think in general, my opinion about like living in the large cities is, if you grew up on the West Coast, whether that's growing up near SF or LA or growing up in New York or whatever, there's always this allure of wanting to live on the other coast. So I've always had this idea or this vision of me living in New York and not really knowing what that looked like. But when I was in grad school, I had the opportunity to interview at Bloomberg, which is in Midtown East in Manhattan. And I ended up getting the internship. And so I was in a relationship at the time, and my plan was to move to New York, do the internship for 3 months, and then move back to the Bay Area. Obviously, that didn't happen because here I am 4 years later. But basically, what happened was that first week that I moved to New York, I went through a breakup.
Mm. Oh,
And
wow, you were apart?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Right when I moved here, we broke up pretty much.
Okay.
And aside from like always having the desire to like want to live in New York, at that time I wasn't out to a lot of people. So
Okay.
I'm a cisgender man, but I identify as gay. And I was in a relationship, and that was my first relationship, and going through my first heartbreak. And a large part of me like wanting to stay here was one, like the allure of living in New York, but two, it was kind of a new opportunity for me to reinvent myself or try something new and not live by the expectations that I had with folks or relationships that I had back home.
Mm.
Those were kind of the two biggest things, I think. Also, getting away from like traditional Silicon Valley tech. um, I just felt super burnt out off of the tech culture there and the design culture there as well. It just feels like everywhere that you went, somebody was like building technology or had an idea for an app. And like, I couldn't even get through a Thanksgiving dinner without my family being like, hey, we should build this. Or like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. I want to eat turkey and mashed potatoes. Okay. And pancit, like, so that was definitely a lot of what caused me to move here. In general, like New York has been amazing. The creative culture here is super open and intense and so different than what I was getting in the Bay Area. You can talk to all different types of designers here. You can talk to artists. If there's something weird or niche that you want to get into, like New York has it for you.
Yeah.
It's just about kind of like finding your tribe or finding that space that you connect to.
Hmm. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you were able to start fresh or like this is your own space, make it your home. I remember the first time I saw you, it was at my old job at 2U. I invited you to like a UX mixer.
Yeah.
I remember the first thing you did was just like come out to me. And I was like, thank you for sharing that with me. I saw the relief or happiness in your eyes to be like, this is the new me. And, glad to see you in person. And
Yeah.
I just felt like, I'm so glad that I'm here and I'm able to share this with you, you know?
And vice versa, right? Like you're experiencing a lot of change in your life as well. And I'm super excited to see your growth and see where it takes you. I mean, you're not like coming out or anything, but like, you have big things coming like in your life.
Yeah.
Um,
I know like Gabe's very private about all of his stuff, and I totally respect that. But I think what makes it crazy is that both of us had tried to follow our own dreams and try and make like long distance work. I won't recommend that to anybody, but what it shows is our commitment to number one, ourselves and our commitment to the relationship. That's on another level, like compounded by all the anxiety and all the imposter syndrome and
yeah,
all the moving pieces. But I'm just grateful to have the right people in my life to encourage me that I'm doing the right thing and that, sometimes I might just need to take a mental day off. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And even speaking of mental days off, like my manager is like, January 20th is coming up. Like if you need it, like please take
Yeah,
it. It's been
totally.
a crazy year. But
Yeah. Just even reflecting on last year and how there's still a lot of uncertainty coming into this new year. I'm just curious, like, what got you through 2020?
yeah, dude, I honestly, I'm like, whew, how did I even get through 2020? I think like one thing that I learned about myself is how resilient I am. And I think like a lot of people realize that as well. But learning to adapt, learning to kind of be alone and like really think about what brings you joy and what brings you happiness, kind of keying in on those things. So for me, I still believe this to be entirely true. Like if I didn't have a career in design, I would love to make a career out of nourishing my relationships. If that could like, if I could monetize that in some way, maybe I shouldn't. But like, that's so important to me. What really got me through are like the Zoom calls, the Zoom parties that I had.
Yeah.
Um, Building those relationships, like even though we couldn't be there physically, establishing intimacy through the internet or learning how to be more vulnerable in different mediums. That was something that I really tried and practiced in 2020, and like I received so much love and vulnerability right back from that. Another big thing that really got me through was actually focusing on my physical and mental health. So, if you knew me before the pandemic, I did not work out. Like, I didn't work out a lick. Like, I was not somebody that wanted to do that. Like, I did it in high school. I was like, oh, I'm skinny. Like, I could do that. But I picked up biking. I got a city bike membership. I'm going to buy a bike this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was biking like 3, 4 times a week. I would meet up with my friend Revo, shout out Revo, in Central Park. And we would walk. We would just walk around the park, do laps around the park, and we would do like 5 miles every time. And we would do that like Friday, Saturday, and sometimes even Sunday, on top of like doing 3 miles of biking. And then I also used like at home apps like the Nike Training Club app,
Mm.
which has been amazing. I love that app, highly recommend it. I still use it today. And I really just started to feel a lot healthier mentally and emotionally, a lot more like in tuned and looking internally towards myself and just doing a lot more reflection. Like for a time last year, I was writing every single day. It was just like, what did you do today? What did you eat? How was work? And just kind of checking in with myself and starting that dialogue, which really helped me kind of like purge out a lot of those like I'm an overthinker. I'm sure you are too. So like it's not real to me unless it's like in the physical. So
Yeah.
once I was able to take those thoughts out of my head and put them out on pen and paper, it like worked wonders for my mental and emotional health.
That's awesome.
So that was super useful to me back in 2020. But I'm also curious to hear like for you, what helped you get through 2020 and like did you learn anything?
I feel like 2020 was the year that Gabe came to New York. And I think I've been on this independent boss lady woman tip for a really long time. And, I don't think I realized like what that really meant when you say, like, oh, I want to be the breadwinner, or shit like that. Right. And then
Hmm.
you take a step back and you're like, you don't have to be that hard all the time. You know, it's
Hmm.
okay to be soft. And I think I didn't learn what that felt like until Gabe was here. And I have a companion here. Like, I have a partner here. We could have uncomfortable conversations of things that we feel insecure about, whether that's about our relationship or like I still have this imposter syndrome. Being able to have someone with you, especially during like these crazy times where a lot of folks are going to be alone. Like, I'm glad that you figured out like what works for you. I was able to enjoy my relationship and have someone to experience this crazy time with. I get that I'm fortunate in doing that, but I think that also helped me establish some sort of routine as well, where we would like
Hmm.
walk around the neighborhood. Like, I've never walked around my neighborhood before, and I didn't realize that there's hella bougie houses like a couple blocks this way and a couple blocks that way. Like, there's a beach if I walk like a mile and a half
Right.
down. And I'm just like, I'm glad that I can share these experiences with somebody, but also have someone remind me, like, I need to eat, or I need to take a break, like, or I need to step out. So that was my experience like during 2020. These may be more delicate topics, but Black Lives Matter, like being out there in the protests, so acknowledging that there's a lot that we don't know or that we don't understand that experience. And I feel
Right.
like we have to own up to that. So that was something that really spoke to me. And getting involved in D&I committee at work, like, I don't know how I can help, but I want to be a part of that, try and have those very delicate conversations in the professional space, you know.
Right.
So that's like a lot of what I learned, but also too, I want to be a better person. I feel like, that's the growth part and the uncomfortable part.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same. And especially I feel like same with like 2021, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of a continuation of that. And I've done a lot of reflection on like death and like living life and things like that. Like I think I told you like I was in like a really bad revel accident. It took me almost 4 months to like fully recover.
Yeah.
And it taught me about the fragility of life in not only personally, but again, with like George Floyd and the protests and like really showing up for life in general,
Yeah.
which I think is super important. And also just being authentic in the sense that like showing up for the causes that you truly believe in and like standing up for what you think is right and making your voice heard, um, in the professional sense too, because, our existence as by POC is political. So I don't like the idea of like, don't bring politics into work because you don't understand. A part of that is showing up 100% or as much as possible as authentically ourselves in the workplace
Yeah.
and kind of navigating those spaces and figuring out what feels okay for us, but also feeling like I'm going to push these people and make them feel uncomfortable because I'm just going to do what I do and this is how I do it. But I'm still going to fucking kill it in my job and I'm still going to I'm
Like,
still going to do shit and kill it, you know?
yeah, like, can we change
Yeah.
a couple things here real quick, you know? So I totally feel you on that, Brennan. But yeah, like, I know that you mentioned what you're looking forward to in the new year, but any other thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely want to do a lot more art in whatever sense that means this year. I've explored a little bit of like watercolor, but I'm really on this like digital illustration kick right now. So I've been watching a lot of Skillshare videos. Lacey Jordan on Skillshare is amazing. I'm doing some digital illustrations. Loved it. So that's one thing. I think again, just doubling down on keeping up with my mental, physical, and emotional health. I had a therapist back in 2019. I'm really all about the in person sort of therapy experience. My insurance changed in 2020, so it got too expensive. But now that I work at Etsy, my insurance is like back being A1. So I definitely want to kick off that process again and obviously do things in a remote setting and then continuing to, work out as well. And then I think just in general, continuing to just learn in all capacities. So learn more about myself, carve time away to just like do reflection or introspection, learn about the world. Like you mentioned, there's so much empathy that I need to continue to gain by listening to Black stories, reading Black stories, hearing Black voices, championing those, and other BIPOC voices as well. So that's going to be a large focus. And then I think just having fun, like making the most of what we can. I'm like fully adopted to like kind of chalking 2021 up to just like kind of being similar to 2020. And I'm okay with that. Some things are out of your control and you just have to make the most out of it. Shifting your mindset and being flexible and adaptable, I think is something that I'm really going to focus on this year as well.
That's good. I think if anything, one of the things I want to exercise is saying no to things. So I think, why are you laughing so hard?
No, well, because I have a problem saying no.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just give you another thing to look at. I mean, it could be lower on the list. It's fine. I mean, everything else sounds good. I'm always down to like do something to like challenge myself. But even during these times, you get all these new projects and you're like, okay, okay. But you don't realize like working from home is a stressor. And
Hmm.
not working in your optimal environment. I'm better like in the office, for example. But saying no to projects that perhaps are too many things on your plate, or oh, I have to do this YouTube channel. I don't have to do anything. Like I
Yeah.
can just hang out with my cats. So I think trying that and being intentional about how I do things, and I think learning in an environment or a time where you're already constrained will probably
Hmm.
help me give myself more time and more space to have balance between life and work, and
Yeah.
being a partner, being a daughter, being a friend, etc. So that is probably where I'm going to be at.
Yeah, most definitely. And doubling down on the piece about, like being gentle with yourself, like we're still in a global pandemic. When we look back on this in 20 years, we're going to be like, holy shit, those 2 years were wild. So
Yeah.
like another thing that I think about is shifting from like a survive mentality to a thrive mentality.
Yeah.
And like 2019, I was like, thrive, thrive. And I was like, thrive again, 2020. And I was like, whoa, let me just survive. And surviving is okay.
Yeah.
And survival looks like hanging out with your cats or watching Netflix and vegging out. That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll have our moments to thrive. And maybe it's both, right? Like, but just being kind and gentle with yourself during this time, I think is super important. So, +1 to you on that.
For sure. Thanks, Brennan. Let's just wrap up. And I just want to say you are always a joy to speak with. And this was such a pleasure to do, even though we're in the same place, Zoom is
Yeah.
the way to go. But wishing you a healthy and happy year. I'll probably check in with you later, but peace.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, LG. Talk to you soon.